Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, when we talk about history, it's easy to think about like dates and battles and, those big events.
Right.
But what about the smaller moments, the personal stories, the things that weave through those larger narratives? Today, we're taking a deep dive into one such moment. The Prince and Princess of Wales attending the Holocaust Memorial Service in London.
It's interesting that you bring up smaller moments because that's really where the power of this particular event lies. It's not just about the royals being there, even though that's important, but it's about those layers of meaning within their participation.
Exactly. And the sources you gave really highlight those layers.
Yeah.
We have details about the service itself, Prince William's speech. But there's this interesting connection between the princess and a Holocaust survivor that she had met years prior.
Yeah.
Feels like a story within a story.
Absolutely. And what's fascinating is how this story within a story connects back to the whole purpose of Holocaust Memorial Day.
Right.
It's not just about remembering the 6 million Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazi regime.
Right.
It's also about understanding the ripple effects of that genocide and the subsequent atrocities and the ongoing fight against hatred and discrimination.
Such a crucial point. For those of us who didn't experience the Holocaust firsthand, it can feel like a distant event.
Yeah.
But then when we connect it to subsequent genocides, like in Rwanda in 1994,
Right.
the magnitude of this issue is impossible to ignore.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder that the lessons from the Holocaust are relevant even today.
Precisely.
Tragically relevant.
The Rwandan genocide, where nearly 1 million people were slaughtered in just a few months, it stands as this chilling testament to the fact that if hatred and intolerance are left unchecked, they can lead to unimaginable horrors.
Oh, yeah.
And that brings us back to why these events like the Holocaust Memorial Service are so important. They serve as powerful reminders to never forget what happened, to actively challenge prejudice, and to strive for a world where atrocities like this never happen again.
So it's about remembering the past.
Yeah.
Not just as a historical event, but as a call to action right now.
Absolutely.
And that's where the Prince and Princess of Wales's involvement becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you'll notice they weren't just passive attendees at this service.
No.
They were actively engaged, meeting with survivors. Participating in a way that felt deeply personal.
Yes, and I think Prince William's speech really captures that sense of personal engagement.
Oh, absolutely.
He didn't just talk about the facts of the Holocaust, but he spoke about the impact on survivors, and he acknowledged their courage in sharing their stories and our responsibility to make sure that those stories are never forgotten.
There's one line from his speech that really struck me.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Their bravery in sharing with us the most harrowing moments of their lives are extremely powerful and ensure that we never forget. I assure them we never will." It's a powerful statement, not just because of his position, but because it highlights that ongoing impact of trauma on survivors and their families.
Right.
It acknowledges that remembering isn't just about the past. It's about supporting those who still carry the weight of that history every day.
Absolutely. And that commitment to remembrance, to truly understanding the human cost of these events, it's also evident in the princess's connection with survivor Yvonne Bernstein.
Right.
They met 4 years prior during the Generations Portrait of Holocaust Survivors project.
Right.
And their reunion at this memorial service adds a really personal layer to the event.
Okay, so let's talk about this photography project because it feels central to understanding her involvement.
It was this collaborative effort to document the experiences of Holocaust survivors through portrait photography.
Okay.
The princess, she's a skilled photographer herself.
Oh, wow.
She captured these images that weren't just nice to look at, they were emotionally resonant.
Yeah.
They became vessels for stories and for memories.
Right.
For the strength and resilience of the human spirit.
So it seems like more than just a photography project.
Oh, yeah.
It's about human connection. It's about making sure these stories are shared and passed down through generations.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that history isn't just about facts and figures. It's about people's lived experiences.
Yeah.
And by capturing those experiences with photography, the princess helped ensure that these stories continue to be told and to inspire people even after the survivors themselves are gone.
And to meet again at this memorial service, years after that initial connection through the project.
Yeah.
That must have been such a powerful moment for both of them.
I can't imagine.
You can imagine the emotions, the shared understanding, acknowledging the journey that they've both been on since they first met.
It really speaks to the enduring impact of these personal connections and how acts of remembrance, even small ones, can ripple outward to create something truly meaningful.
Yeah, and it's interesting because we think of remembrance as this big public thing, but this highlights the power of individual connections in keeping those stories alive.
It does.
And speaking of small details that carry big meaning,
Oh, yeah.
let's talk about the princess's choice of necklace for this event.
Okay.
You can really see how she used fashion to make a statement.
Ah, yes. The 5-row pearl necklace,
Yes.
a vintage piece from the 1980s,
Wow.
sourced from a Jewish-owned brand called, at Susan Kaplan,
So
Faux Pearls Swarovski Crystal Clasp.
nice.
It's quite striking, especially when you consider what pearls symbolize.
Okay, so break down that symbolism for us.
Right.
Why pearls and why is this choice so significant?
Well, pearls are often associated with resilience and purity and enduring beauty qualities that really resonate with the stories of Holocaust survivors.
Yeah.
And the fact that the necklace came from a Jewish-owned brand adds another layer of a subtle nod to the context of the event.
Yeah.
It's subtle but powerful, using fashion as a kind of visual storytelling.
Right.
The princess isn't just at the event. She's making a statement, expressing solidarity, amplifying the message of remembrance with her clothing choices.
It's like she's saying, I see you, I hear you, and I stand with you, without even saying it.
Yeah.
And that's what's so powerful about fashion.
Right.
It communicates on a deeper level. It goes beyond language.
Yeah.
It connects with people in a different way.
Absolutely. And, this idea of using fashion to make a statement isn't new.
No.
Throughout history, people have used clothing and accessories to show cultural identity and political affiliations and social beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
Think about the suffragette movement and how they use the color white.
Yes.
Or the Black Power movement and their use of the afro.
Oh, yeah, as a symbol of pride and resistance.
Exactly.
So it's fascinating how something as simple as clothing can have so much weight and meaning.
It really is.
And in this case, the princess's choice of necklace adds another layer to this already significant event. It reminds us that even the smallest details can contribute to a larger narrative,
Yeah.
a collective act of remembrance.
It's a reminder that remembrance isn't just about the past.
Right.
It's about shaping the future. By acknowledging the horrors of the Holocaust, by understanding the depth of human cruelty, we are better equipped to see and challenge those same behaviors today.
So looking back, in order to move forward,
Yeah.
to make sure history doesn't repeat itself.
Precisely. The Holocaust and the other genocides, like in Rwanda, they show us where hatred and intolerance can lead.
It's scary.
Remembering these events means being vigilant, actively opposing prejudice and discrimination whenever we see it.
We've been talking a lot about these big ideas like remembrance and fighting hate. But it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the scale of these issues.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, what can one person even do to make a difference?
That's a question we all ask, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the truth is, there's no easy answer.
Right.
But I think it starts with awareness. We have to educate ourselves about the different forms that hatred and discrimination can take. We have to understand the history and how these things show up today.
Right.
We need to be able to see those subtle ways that prejudice can even creep into our own thoughts and actions.
So knowledge is the first step.
Yeah.
But what next? How do we actually put that knowledge into action?
Well, for starters, we need to be willing to speak up against injustice.
Right.
To challenge prejudice when we see it, even when it's uncomfortable.
Right.
To have those tough conversations with our family and friends.
Yes.
To point out those little everyday acts of discrimination. To use our voices to support those who are marginalized and oppressed.
So it's about not just standing by and watching.
No.
It's about choosing to stand up even when it's hard.
Exactly. And we need to remember we're not alone in this.
Right.
There are so many people and groups working to fight hate and discrimination. By connecting with them, by supporting their work, we can make our voices stronger and be a part of a movement for change.
So it's about finding those communities,
Yeah.
those groups of people who are fighting for the same thing.
Absolutely.
And there's strength in numbers.
That really is. When we work together, we can create a more powerful force for positive change.
Right.
But it's not just about big actions or joining movements.
Right.
Sometimes the most meaningful change happens in our own everyday lives, in our personal interactions.
So what does that look like?
Yeah.
How do we bring understanding and tolerance into those smaller everyday moments?
It's about treating everyone with respect,
Yeah.
no matter their background or beliefs.
Yes.
It's about listening to other viewpoints, even when we don't agree. It's about challenging our own biases,
Yeah.
admitting that we all have blind spots, and being open to learning from others.
So it's about building empathy.
Yeah.
Trying to see the world from other people's perspectives.
Exactly.
And that means having those uncomfortable conversations and admitting when we're wrong. Being willing to change our minds.
It's an ongoing process, isn't it?
Yeah.
A journey of learning and unlearning and relearning.
It's realizing that we're all works in progress. And that this fight against hatred and discrimination is something we have to work on every day.
It's a fight worth having.
Yes.
Because in the end, it's a fight for a better future for everyone.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels safe and respected and valued, no matter their differences.
Exactly.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your final thoughts.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to emphasize? Any key takeaways for our listeners?
I think the most important takeaway is that remembrance isn't passive.
Right.
It's a call to action. It means being committed to fighting hatred and discrimination in all its forms.
Yes, both big and small.
And that fight starts with each of us.
You've given us so much to think about today.
Good.
But I think the question that's still in my mind, and probably in our listeners' mind too, is
Yeah.
how can we as individuals really contribute to that fight? What can we do in our own unique ways to make a difference?
That's the question we all have to ask ourselves. And the great thing is, the answer is going to be different for each person.
Yeah.
You know, it might be through education or by challenging prejudice in your own life or supporting those organizations doing the work. There are just so many ways to contribute.
So it's not about finding the one right way to make a difference. It's about finding the way that speaks to you.
Exactly. Maybe you're drawn to art and storytelling like The Princess.
Yeah.
You could use photography or writing or music or any other creative way to share those stories of resilience, to highlight the impact of hate and discrimination, or to celebrate diversity.
Right. Or maybe you're more of an activist, someone who's comfortable speaking out, you know, organizing protests or challenging injustice more directly.
Exactly. And for others, it might be about those quieter acts of kindness and understanding.
Right.
Maybe reaching out to someone who's different from you,
Yeah.
listening to their story and building a connection.
It's about knowing that even those small actions can make a difference. That each of us can create positive change in our own way.
And that's what I hope you take away from this deep dive. We've gone from this one event, the Prince and Princess at the Holocaust Memorial Service,
Right.
to these bigger ideas of remembrance and resilience and the role we all have in fighting hate and discrimination.
You've shown us that remembering isn't just about the past. It's about shaping the future.
Yeah,
And that fight for a better future, well, it starts with each of us.
it really does. So I'll leave you with this question.
Okay.
How will you contribute? How will you work to make sure these stories aren't forgotten? And how will you make sure that we keep learning from the past so we can build a more just and compassionate world?
That's a powerful question to think about, and one that I hope will stay with our listeners long after this deep dive ends. Thanks for joining us on this journey of exploration and reflection. Until next time.